Hey everyone, I'm Will, and in this video we are talking about gear, and specifically gear for landscape photography. I want to share with you what I think is probably the most underutilized, but really one of the best lenses that you can use for your landscape photography. I want to share the lens with you and of course give you some tips for using this specific lens and some tips for your landscape photography in general. Okay, have you ever heard anyone tell you that it's not all about the gear and gear doesn't matter when it comes to landscape photography? I've got to admit, I've probably said similar things myself. Of course though, we do need a certain amount of gear to create the images that we want to create. A solid camera body and then of course the right lenses. Now the 24-70 is probably the main workhorse when it comes to not only landscape photography, but just photography in general. The mid-range zoom, incredibly versatile. Now, of course, that's not always wide enough when it comes to landscape photography, and often we want to be shooting a little wider to really pick up more depth in our foreground. Something like a 12-24mm, 14-24, 16-35. Very common lens. Let's talk about the other extreme though, and what I think is really an underutilized lens, but the more that I look through my images and think about the images I like to create, I'm always leaning towards this lens. Of course, I'm talking about not the 70-200, the 100-400. Now I'm shooting with the Sony 100-400. It doesn't matter about the brand. It's just what this focal length can do for your photography. Shooting at these longer focal lengths is really going to open up different possibilities and give you some unique opportunities out in the landscape. Let's face it, we've all seen a million wide angle images before from iconic locations. And when we go wide, trust me, I love shooting wide. I'd say 50% of my portfolio is probably in the wide realm. But the images which really have a unique take on them and ones that make me probably think a little bit more in the landscape is using that telephoto lens. Now, why am I not talking about the 70-200? From experience, having used that lens and then the 100-400, once you have the longer reach of the 100-400, there's no going back. You get really used to having that extra focal length there, and it just opens up more possibilities. Now, the key when using a lens like this, a long telephoto lens, it's all about seeing the scene within the scene. It's very common in landscape photography that we can get overwhelmed with the environment because there's just so much going on. And that's where people often will just go really wide, even 24mm, 16mm, etc. Really wide, fit a lot in the frame, but still not really thinking about what the main subject is and where we want the eye to flow to. The trick with the long lens, the 100-400, is taking in that grand environment, but then slowing down and analyzing all the finer details, those little details off in the distance, and then saying, aha, there's the frame there. And then with that lens, we're eliminating the distractions. Don't think of this lens as a way to zoom in on a particular subject. Yes, of course, that's what we're doing. But think of it more as giving you the ability to now remove the noise, remove the clutter, the distractions, and say, you know what? That to me is the most beautiful, striking part of everything I'm looking at. Let me remove all this other mess and bring that to the forefront of the viewer. My main tip with using a long lens is to think about building depth with layers. Now, we're not always going to be doing that. Sometimes we'll just go for a very simple portrait-like photograph. But if I really want to create a more three-dimensional, impactful image with this tele, it's finding that main subject, but then looking beneath it and progressively closer to where I'm standing, the rest of the frame, and saying, all right, what can I keep adding in order to now build that depth, build the framing, build out the composition so it's not just two-dimensional. So we're using that lens to eliminate distractions, isolate the main subject matter, and then strategically adding elements in order to make the composition more compelling. Through teaching workshops for quite some time now, most people have the mid-range and a wide angle, and then they're hesitant on buying the telephoto lens, and then they probably will most likely look at a 70-200. I want to encourage you guys, consider the 100-400, challenge yourself with your photography. Now, some locations are far easier than others with this lens, and I think this is why it's one that Even myself, I'm raving about this lens, but it's still probably potentially one of the least used in my kit because it does take the right location, the right subject matter, and the right light to make the most of this lens. So if you're a photographer that enjoys traveling and getting out in different environments, it's a great tool to have. If you're someone that stays in the same environment all the time, then you really want to think about, are you going to get the most of it? But it doesn't matter if you're near forests, coasts, mountain landscapes. It is a lens that really works in every type of location. You just need the right alignment of the light and the atmosphere. There's another tip there with this lens. It's utilizing side light. That really helps because we're capturing such a small frame, a little window in the landscape. It's hard to get that direct light coming into the frame. Not like with a wide angle where we can literally get the sunrise or sunset and show the light coming in the frame or even shoot towards the sun itself. With this lens, it's really tricky to do that. So the side light is a great way to showcase the contours, details, and depth in the landscape. Just keep that in mind compared to direct light, which will really flatten things out. Side light, even backlight, can create some good mystery and more shadows to show that graduation in the darker tones. If you're enjoying this video, guys, please consider subscribing. I've got a lot more videos on the way and a huge back catalog I'd love you to check out. So thank you for your support and subscribing to the channel. So there we go. The 100 to 400mm, been shooting with it for over a decade now. And yes, definitely probably the least utilized in my toolkit, but also one of my favorite lenses. You just need that right combination of elements to align. It's really hard to say what is the best lens or my favorite lens if I had to shoot with one lens, because I really love shooting wide, the mid-range, and the telephoto. So if you are a landscape photographer, you're passionate about landscape photography, if you can have that arsenal of the main big three lenses, you've got all the bases covered. If you're in that position where you're thinking about getting a new lens or a longer lens, I definitely suggest going for the 100 to 400, or you could even go a 70 to 200 and then use a teleconverter on there. But I'm telling you, having that extra reach just opens up way more possibilities for your photography. Thanks for checking out the video. If you have any questions or even comments about the lens or maybe your favorite lens, leave it below. I'm all ears and I appreciate your support on the channel. It means a lot. Likes, comments, shares, and subscribes go a long way. I look forward to bringing you a new video soon. Thank you.